The first weekend of the Mainieri era is officially in the books for South Carolina baseball. The Gamecocks have swept Sacred Heart in a 3-game series, dominating the last 2 games en route to a series sweep this weekend over at now Ray Tanner Field at Founders Park. Hello, everyone. I am Jack Veltri, and welcome into GC Live Sunday Reset. Like we do each and every week, we are back, but this time we are talking solely baseball. As like I said before, the Gamecocks have swept the Sacred Heart Pioneers to open the 2025 college baseball season. So I hope you guys are all doing well on your Sunday evening now, kind of afternoon still. It's just about 5 o'clock now. So whatever you consider it, happy Sunday nonetheless. We've got a lot of good baseball to talk about. What a good weekend this was for the Gamecocks, ushering in a brand new era with new head coach Paul Mainieri winning his first 3 games as South Carolina's head coach and is off to a really good start to his tenure as the Gamecocks head man. So we are going to be breaking down each of these games from the weekend, sharing some additional thoughts, what stood out, what's next for this team, and everything in between. But before we get rolling, as always, be sure to, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to our channel, Gamecock Central. You can follow us on all social media, Gamecock Central. You can also go ahead and subscribe to our website, GamecockCentral.com. You want to read any good baseball stories got going on, join in on the conversation on the Insiders Forum, got to subscribe to GamecockCentral.com. It is a great time to be joining the team, the family, and it is a lot of fun over there right now with baseball off to a very good start this season. And also be sure to like and on any of the platforms that you're watching on, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and if you're listening on any podcast platforms later, be sure to give a thumbs up as well. Let's also talk about our main sponsor of the day. If you're watching live, right above me here, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. If you're in the market to buy a home or you need help with your mortgage, but you have no idea where to start, I got good news for you. Clint can help you out. He's been in the mortgage industry for more than 20 years. And he's a lifelong Gamecock fan, and he's a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central. Again, you will always see his information above me here if you're watching live on all of our GC Live programs. So the number to call him is 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597. You can also go to ClintHammond.com for more info. So, yeah, I just got back from the ballpark probably about, I don't know, maybe 25, 30 minutes ago after South Carolina picked up an 8-0 win over Sacred Heart earlier this afternoon on Sunday to complete the sweep. And my initial thoughts, just I'm very impressed with what I've been seeing from this team. I think the vibes are definitely different compared to years past. And look, I've been covering this team on and off since 2020, but more regularly, like full-time, if you will, ever since I became full-time at Gamecock Central since the 2024 season. So I've seen a lot of baseball here now at Founders Park and with this Gamecock team. And I can tell you it just feels different. It's 3 games. It's a very small sample size. Who knows what's going to happen when SEC play heats up in about a month, or even the Clemson series in 2 weeks here. But you got to be feeling good about this team. Like, I've been talking to fans online, people in person at the games and stuff. There's just a good vibe with this team right now. Like, I think it's refreshing, for one, to see South Carolina sweep a series against, I know it's Sacred Heart, but like, this is a good opponent to play for a mid-major, purposes and whatnot. Like, Sacred Heart's team that won the Northeastern Conference regular season title last year and had a very solid season. And they posed some issues in that first game of the series, which we're about to talk about here in a moment. But you got to be happy with the results of this weekend. Your pitching was phenomenal. Your bats they could have been better. But overall, I think the approach is a lot different. It's not as much of home run or strikeout. I mean, you only hit 2 home runs this weekend, and you let the rest of everything take care of itself. You let Sacred Heart make mistakes, which played a big role in South Carolina being able to score some of the runs they did down the stretch in these, especially the last two games of the weekend. So without further ado, how we're going to do this every single weekend. Again, on GC Live Sunday Reset, we will be recapping the entire weekend series at hand for South Carolina. This will be the case for every weekend during the regular season, and then however far they go in the postseason and whatnot. And then during the week, as usual, we will be doing GC Live, which is going to be primarily focused on baseball the day before a weekend series begins. And during that time, now that the season's underway, we'll be talking about the midweek games, kind of recapping those, and then we'll preview the weekend ahead. And this week we got two midweek games. South Carolina goes to Winthrop on Tuesday. I'll be there in Rock Hill. It's right near Fort Mill for me, which is very convenient. And then on Wednesday, Queens comes to town to Founders Park, and South Carolina will have its second midweek game of the season and of the week. And then it's on to playing Milwaukee in a weekend series starting on Friday. So that is how the general format of this all will work. But let's go ahead and get started by talking about Game 1 on Friday night for South Carolina, opening day, the first game of the Paul Mainieri era. And it got off to a very good start after scoring 2 runs to open the game in the first 2 innings. Ethan Petry hits a solo home run near the batter's eye in center field, a little bit to the left of it. And that is the first home run of the year for the Gamecocks. And who else but Mr. Petry? Career home run number 45 for him in a South Carolina uniform. And on the mound, Dylan Eskew was about as good as you could have your opening day starter be. 5 innings of 1-run ball, 3 hits, 9 strikeouts, no walks. He did hit 4 batters, which I know was probably a little bit concerning to some people, but nevertheless, on 74 pitches, giving you that type of outing, it's a very solid way to begin the season for Mr. Eskew. And then the bullpen came in after Eskew, and Tyler Pitzer struggled a little bit, gave up 2 runs, walked 3, only made it through one-third of an inning, and it looked like South Carolina was in a little bit of trouble after Sacred Heart tied the game at 3 in the 6th inning. But the bullpen was phenomenal after that. Parker Marlott, Brendan Sweeney pitched 3 2/3 shutout innings to lock down what would be a save eventually. But before that, Henry Kazmar came through with a go-ahead RBI single in the 7th inning, followed by a Nolan Naraki RBI single in the 8th inning. And South Carolina, with a great effort in the later innings, after not consistently hitting for a good portion of the day, came away with a 5-3 win on opening day to mark the first win for Paul Mainieri as South Carolina's head coach. And that was it was a good game, right? I mean, it was not the blowout that I think many people probably wanted to kick off the 2025 season, but nevertheless, it was the type of game that you're going to get into once the season really does heat up. Like, you're going to be facing teams that are much better than Sacred Heart, and you're going to be in these types of games where it's a tie game in the later innings, and you're going to need a big hit. And that's exactly what this team got. Again, Henry Kazmar delivers a huge hit in the 7th inning. And a lot of the credit for that situation, I think, needs to also go to Blake Jackson, who had gotten on base with a walk. Then he stole second. And keep in mind, he was the team leader in stolen bases last year for South Carolina. So getting into scoring position when you weren't able to get a single hit since Ethan Petry's solo home run back in the 3rd inning, that was very important. And after a pitch in the dirt, Jackson goes to 3rd, and then Henry Kazmar comes through with the go-ahead hit. That would be the difference in the game. And a very big hit for him at that, because he's a guy that is new this season for the Gamecocks. He transferred in from Ohio State, and he'd been swinging the bat very well during the fall and the preseason. And he's going to be your 2-hole hitter this season, and he was pretty good, I thought, this weekend. I mean, look, the at-bats, he went 2 for 12 this weekend. And people are going to look at that and say, "Oh, he just wasn't very good." But I think, all things considered, getting that hit in the clutch just is something you're going to need down the road no doubt. And that was big to come through. I thought the other thing that really stood out in this game was the back end of the bullpen. Obviously, Tyler Pitzer struggled mightily behind Dylan Eskew after a really, really solid start, in my opinion. Again, 9 strikeouts, no walks. I know the hit by pitches were high. Then again, it is the first start of the year. But back to Pitzer, definitely struggled a bit. Just didn't have the command, and he got his redemption later in the weekend that we'll talk about here in a bit. But Parker Marlott, Brendan Sweeney, the Bulldog, Sweeney picking up his first save of the year. I mean, what more can you ask for? Marlott threw 45 pitches, 5 strikeouts, no walks, and then Sweeney came in to close out the game in the ninth. Only needed 6 pitches to get through the inning. So a very solid start to begin the 2025 season. A little bit of late inning dramatics, but you come away with the win, and that is the most important thing here. All right, on to game 2. And I can tell you this one was a little bit not as dramatic, which I think was probably something a lot of people needed. So game 2, South Carolina back in action Saturday afternoon. Ray Tanner Day at the ballpark, honoring the legendary head coach of South Carolina that helped the Gamecocks win 2 national championships. They gave the fans were given koozies. You got a trading card. Heck, you even got, I wasn't expecting this, you have an entire book with the foreword by Ray Tanner himself. So that was an awesome ceremony at the ballpark. Again, I'm going to have all vlog coverage in my behind-the-scenes video to come on our YouTube channel, probably on Monday morning at some point. Going to work on that a little bit tonight, putting that together. But anyway, great ceremony before the game, and that led to a very productive afternoon for the Gamecocks as they picked up a 14-0 win over Sacred Heart, winning in run rule fashion in 7 innings. And how else can you start but with the pitching once again? Matthew Becker, 5 innings, 1 hit, 9 strikeouts, no walks on 60 pitches. A solid outing, to say the least, for the left-hander on the mound. And it was a big day for him because he grew up a lifelong Gamecock fan. Had his favorite player was Jackie Bradley Jr. growing up right here in the Chapin area, and had a very solid start, one that I think was definitely due considering how good he had been pitching since the fall. But the bats were much, much more productive this time around, scoring 14 runs. And a lot of it did come by way of Sacred Heart making mistakes. There were only 2 errors made by the Pioneers in this game, but at one point it was, I think it got as high as 4, and after some score changes and stuff, it ended up being 2. But South Carolina was able to capitalize on the mistakes made in this game, and it made a big difference. And they also walked 11 times and only struck out 5. Some of the big standouts in this game, Ethan Petrie had 2 RBIs. Jace Woida also had 2 RBIs coming off the bench late in the game. Nolan Naraki had 2 RBIs as well. It just felt like a lot of different guys got their time to shine. And by the 4th inning, this game was already over. I mean, it was 11-0 Gamecocks en route to a very easy victory. And Ryder Garino, the freshman right-hander, closed it out, pitching 2 scoreless innings, 4 strikeouts, no walks on 29 pitches to close it out. Some of the other standouts, Bo Hollins picks up his first career hit as a Gamecock. Same with Gavin Brayland. And yeah, again, a very nice afternoon for the Gamecocks on Ray Tanner Day. And as I said before, very nice day for Matthew Becker. Again, 5 innings, no runs, 9 strikeouts. I think he probably pitched the best of. It's hard to argue with what I'm going to say for the Sunday recap here in a second, but I thought from start to finish, Becker was just in complete control. And the 9 strikeouts, no walks on just 60 pitches. I mean, if this were maybe April or May, and you get this type of outing from him, you're definitely bringing him back out for the 6th, and maybe he goes the distance. At that point, it's a very likely possibility if he continues on that pace. He definitely could pitch a potential shutout and go the distance for a complete game. But very solid effort from the Gamecocks after playing such a tight-knit game on Friday night. And I think Paul Mainieri was a little surprised at how Sacred Heart's defense played, because again, there were so many mistakes made in this game by the Pioneers. I mean, the errors probably could have been a lot more than they were, but it was like any time they'd make an error in the field, South Carolina would immediately capitalize. And also having the 11 walks, and then the amount of wild pitches and balls that went to the backstop, it just helped South Carolina out greatly. And I think the other thing is that I noticed this on Saturday is just the at bats have just been very good. Again, Mainieri doesn't like to see the walks as high as they were. He likes to put the ball in play and score runs, get the fans hyped up. I mean, but you're going to have to take your walks from time to time. And when you're getting on base as much as South Carolina was, again, it's not like Sacred Heart was throwing the ball over the middle of the plate at times. When you have that many walks, you got to take your bases, and then you hopefully capitalize. And that's exactly what South Carolina did in a run rule victory to win the series. But there was a third game, and that was played earlier this afternoon at Founders Park with a chance to go for a series sweep. And let's go ahead and talk about the game that just ended probably about an hour ago, maybe a little bit longer. But the Gamecocks have a chance to complete a series sweep of Sacred Heart on Sunday afternoon. Jake McCoy, the sophomore left-hander who won the battle for the final spot in the weaker end rotation, with a very good outing in his final preseason start. And he showed exactly why he earned that role. 5 innings, no hits, 9 strikeouts, 1 walk, only put 2 runners on base. 1 came on an error early in the game by Nolan Naraki, and then there was a walk in the 4th inning. But other than that, McCoy was on the money. He said that about 80% of his pitches were fastballs. And with a guy that throws between 95 to 97 miles an hour, it's going to be tough for a team like Sacred Heart, or just anyone for that matter, to catch up with how hard he was throwing. He pounded the zone time and time again, and it kept up with the theme of very solid pitching throughout the weekend with a no-hit performance through 5 innings. And then the bullpen followed suit. 1 1/3 innings from Zach Russell making his college debut. 4 strikeouts of the 4 batters he faced. Ashton Crowther came in afterwards, 1 hit given up, and that would be Sacred Heart's first hit of the day in the 7th inning. 2 strikeouts, and then Tyler Pitzer closed things out in the 9th inning. But for a time, South Carolina's offense was struggling to put runs across. They had only had 2 runs, and one of them came on a sacrifice fly, and the other came in the 5th inning. But in the 6th, the Gamecocks exploded for 4 runs, which started with Blake Jackson, one of the many heroes from Friday night's game, had an RBI double down the right field line. Then came the big blow. Boy, was this a great swing. Nathan Hall hit a 3-run homer into left field, 366 feet off the bat, 113 miles an hour off the bat. Some fan out in the stands, out in left field, caught the ball barehanded, which I think is probably the most impressive thing of the day, aside from South Carolina hitting the ball like they did in the later innings. And that would lead to the Gamecocks putting 2 more runs in the 8th inning, with Ethan Petrie going ahead and bringing home a run on a RBI triple into right center field. And then Kennedy Jones would follow suit with an RBI single to round out the scoring. And that would lead to the Gamecocks picking up a 8-0 shutout win to cap off the series sweep to open the 2025 season. Very impressive day watching this team on Sunday. I think McCoy definitely earned the Sunday duties. I think maybe there were some questions about, I know Mainieri had questions about, okay, when you get into a jam, because he can definitely pitch very well the first few innings, but when he gets into a jam, how can he respond? He didn't really get into many jams on Sunday. There was one situation where Sacred Heart had a runner on third base in the middle innings, but McCoy was able to work out of it without much issue. And there were a few balls hit hard in this game. And again, only 1 home run on Sunday that came off the bat of Nathan Hall. But other than that, the ball stayed in the ballpark. You could argue if this were maybe, I know it was a nice day outside as it turned out, in the mid-60s and sunny and the wind blowing a bit. But if this were maybe April, May, one of those warmer days, the ball probably carries out and you probably have a higher scoring game. but South Carolina was able to just really pounce when it mattered most in those later innings after only leading 2-0. And you take advantage of some key mistakes, like in the 8th inning. Sacred Heart had 3 errors today. They had a chance to pitch a 1-2-3 inning against South Carolina in that 8th, but a throwing error that pulled the first baseman off the bag on a ground ball to second base led to Petrie having his RBI triple, and then Kennedy Jones driving in a run with an RBI single. So it's things like that that South Carolina was able to take advantage of. And again, the walks were definitely high, 6 walks today with only 5 strikeouts. That's the thing. You're walking a lot and you're not striking out much. And I know that's something that a lot of people can probably appreciate, is the fact that South Carolina in the past has struck out a lot, but they've hit some homers. And this year, you're not hitting a ton of homers so far, only 2 through 3 games, but you're walking a lot and you're not striking out a ton. You're putting the ball in play, and that's where good things happen. And that's what you saw from the Gamecocks this entire weekend. So a very nice series sweep. McCoy gets it started on the mound, and then you got the bullpen shutting things down with Zach Russell, Ashton Crowther, and Tyler Pitzer pitching the final 4 innings of this game to cap off a very impressive series sweep. And we got a comment here from Martin, who says Gamecock pitchers did great, but need to find some guys who throw 95 plus. I understand that, but at the same time, you don't necessarily need guys who throw upper 90s, 100 miles an hour. You don't have a guy who throws 100 on this team. You have Jake McCoy who throws 97. He's your hardest thrower. You got other guys that can clock into the mid-90s and stuff. But take Matthew Becker as a guy, for instance. He's a perfect example of velocity not always being everything. He throws his fastball between 88 to 90 miles an hour, and you see his strikeout totals, 9 strikeouts, no walks. So no complaints about that. So it's not about throwing hard. You could throw hard and have no command. But with South Carolina, under pitching coach Terry Rooney, you have command. And yeah, you don't throw overly hard. You have enough guys that do throw hard. It's much better than last year or even years past, where you actually have a few guys that can throw hard, but you don't. Speed is not necessarily everything. You have to have command. And I think that's more important. That's exactly what this pitching staff has, as they had, I believe, 45 strikeouts this weekend in those 3 games. And you only give up 3 runs in total this weekend. I mean, your pitching staff was insanely good. And it all started with who started on the mound. Again, Eskew, Becker, McCoy all gave you chances to win this weekend, and you took advantage. Eskew got no decision, but the other 2 guys get wins, and it's a very productive weekend from that standpoint for this pitching staff that I think received a lot of questions heading into the season. You see the preseason predictions and all that, and the rankings, not including South Carolina. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they don't have the notable guys in the rotation. They don't have that SEC frontline starter. However, I know it's just one weekend, but you had a pitching staff that really set the tone this weekend with the weekend rotation. And I think you're feeling really good right now. Like, these guys could definitely go out here and seemingly compete with anyone. And when you're getting the quality outings that you're getting only through 5 innings apiece, that's very good to see. And then the back end of your bullpen doing some good things. I think the only really rough outing of the weekend was probably Tyler Pitzer. But other than that, Parker Marlott, Brendan Sweeney, Pitzer getting an opportunity again on Sunday, Crowther, guys like that getting to pitch, Ryder Guerrino, Zach Russell. You had a lot of guys throw this weekend, and honestly, it's not even your entire bullpen, because we'll get into Tuesday here in a second, but you're going to have some more guys throwing on Tuesday and Wednesday that we have yet to see. And I think it's going to be a really good opportunity to see what else you have with this pitching staff, because as the season goes on, you're going to need more guys to get in there and help this team win. Now, one guy who we heard an update on Thursday before the season began was Eli Jersenbeck. And the issue with him was, he did make the weekend rotation to start the season. And later, Paul Mainieri revealed on Thursday that he had gone to see a doctor, and there's no diagnosis yet. And who knows what it is. But Mainieri was asked earlier today after the game about what the status of Jersenbeck is moving forward, and he had no update on him. So again, the initial update on Thursday was that Jerzenbeck's going to be down this weekend and then going into next week. So I wouldn't expect to see him anytime soon. Another quick injury update to mention. If you have been paying attention, you'll know that Talmadge LeCroy was only supposed to catch the first 2 games of this series, but he ended up catching all 3. And Max Coffer, who Mainieri said was in line to start Sunday's game, had tweaked his back doing base running drills before the game on Saturday, and he didn't play at all this weekend. Ryan Bakes did catch some on Saturday after South Carolina got within, having 11 runs on the board and the game was out of hand. So you were able to get a lot of backups in. And then on Sunday afternoon, after the game kind of was where it was at 8-0, you were able to get Gavin Breland in there to catch the 9th inning with Tyler Pitzer, which Mainieri was very happy with. So we will see what happens with Coffer. The hope is that he's going to be back sooner rather than later, hopefully for Tuesday's game at Winthrop, but we will see. And then getting into what's next for the Gamecocks. Well, as I mentioned before, Tuesday afternoon, you go to Rock Hill to play at Winthrop. Jarvis Evans is supposed to be starting on the mound, according to Mainieri. He didn't pitch at all this weekend, but he did pitch a lot during the preseason, and I like a lot of his stuff. He's a Georgia transfer, left-hander, so he will be he's supposed to get the ball, according to Mainieri, unless something changes between now and then. But, of course, we will have all updates on that situation once the official starting matchup gets revealed, the pitching matchup, that is, gets revealed for Tuesday's game at Winthrop. And I would expect a lot of other guys that didn't get to throw this weekend will be in line to pitch. Another guy I would expect is probably Brandon Stone. If he doesn't pitch on Tuesday, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up just starting Wednesday's game against Queens. And you're going to need to see what you got with these other arms that didn't get a chance to throw in these 2 midweek games coming up, because normally you'll only have 1 midweek game, but this is, I think, only one of 2 cases this season where you'll have a week where you have 2 midweek games, and it's 5 games in a short amount of time here, with only 1 day off coming tomorrow on Monday on President's Day. But yeah, it's baseball season. It's heating up, and a lot of games right out of the gate. Now, who stood out this weekend? I think let's do a player of the game or player of the weekend from a hitter standpoint, and then we'll do a pitcher of the weekend, which is going to be a lot harder to assess. I think you got to go with you could either go Nathan Hall or Ethan Petrie. And I think for the time being, I'm going to go with Nathan Hall. He had a very solid weekend, 4 for 8 at the plate in his first weekend as a South Carolina Gamecock after transferring over from Clemson. The Lexington native had 1 homer, of course, coming on Sunday, that 3-run shot into left field, 4 RBIs and 8 total bases. Again, you could easily give this to Ethan Petrie, but Petrie also was solid. 1 homer, 4 RBIs, 3 for 8 at the plate in these 3 games. Very solid weekend for those guys. But again, Nathan Hall really carried South Carolina to a victory here on Sunday. From a pitching standpoint, it's a lot harder to assess, like I said, because you had so many guys stand out. And honestly, I don't know if you could even really lean one way. So I think the entire weekend rotation deserves a huge round of applause for the way they performed between Dylan Eskew, Matthew Becker, and Jake McCoy. What else can you say when you get 5 solid innings each out of those guys and you only give up 1 combined run and you strike out 27 guys with, get this, 1 walk? That is remarkable. Nothing better than that to start the year. And I think the rotation is looking very solid right now. Again, it is 1 weekend, but you do like what you got with those guys. And so I think it's hard to pick one guy for a pitcher of the weekend, but I'd have to make it a co-pitcher award, because again, those 3 guys were very solid throughout the weekend. So again, it was a nice time being at the ballpark. I think it's very refreshing for a lot of fans to see this team have the success they did, because it's something that you didn't get to see really much of consistently, at least last season under Mark Kingston in 2024, with the year that ended in the NCAA tournament in the regional round. But still a long way to go. It's a 56-game season in the regular season for the Gamecocks. Then you got the SEC tournament, and then We'll see what happens if they can make the NCAA tournament, but nevertheless, a very good start to the year for this ball club with a lot of hope and potential promise for what the future looks like. So, again, 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon in Rock Hill, South Carolina plays their first midweek matchup of the year against the Winthrop Eagles. That game will be streaming on ESPN Plus, but if you're unable to get that game on stream, you can also listen on radio, of course, on 107.5 The Game, but also I will have all coverage on GamecockCentral.com. Do live updates over there, do a post-game recap video, and we'll do a live stream on Thursday to recap the 2 midweek games, and then we'll dive into a preview of what's to come with Milwaukee coming to town next weekend. We'll also hear from, tentatively right now, we'll hear from Paul Mainieri and players on Thursday afternoon before that weekend series begins, and we'll have, again, all coverage to come on that. So lots to look forward to. Baseball season is officially in the swing of things, and I am very excited about it. Got a lot to talk about throughout the season, and we'll see. Hopefully this is the first of many fun weekends where we could talk about series sweeps and stuff. But for now, enjoy the moment. Enjoy this weekend. I know women's basketball had a very rough game today, and men's basketball did not perform very well last night. But you know what? Baseball is back. Softball is performing very well. Also continuing to just roll through non-conference play so far, and the Gamecocks in baseball are just heating up. So appreciate all of you guys tuning in. As always, again, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're listening there, also on Twitter and Facebook and wherever you get your podcasts from. So once again, South Carolina sweeps the first weekend series of the year against Sacred Heart, and they'll be back in action on Tuesday at Winthrop and then home versus Queens on Wednesday. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys, and I will see you guys again soon. I'll see you on next Sunday for another edition of Sunday Reset. Have a good one, guys.